During this pandemic, we reached 75% of post-harvest loss. This is sad. That's why, I really challenge everyone who are developing interventions on cold chain storage that I think we need to step back a little bit and review this.
I'd like to introduce now our second speaker for the State of the Industry panel, Ms. Cherrie Atilano from AGREA International. She is the founding farmer and CEO of AGREA International, which is a social enterprise promoting the improvement of the agricultural sector in the Philippines. And it's very much tied to the development of the cold chain industry. So it's very exciting to have her speaking with us today. So Cherrie, I want to see if you're with us right now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, great. So if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you to please go ahead and you can take over the slides and you're good to go.
Okay, thank you very much, Devin. Thank you very much, Yan, and the organizers of ATMO for actually. This is my first time, so I'm excited. Despite technical difficulties, it's okay. So I'll go through with my presentation. Hopefully you can hear me okay and you can see my presentation. As mentioned by Devin, I'm Cherrie Atilano. So we work a lot with farmers in the Philippines. And I represent the company. It's called AGREA. It's actually an agricultural company that is based in the Philippines and we're working around the Philippines. Our business is focused on really solving what's appropriate solutions for farmers. We provide interventions that are very farmer focused and very farmer design. So we call it cultivation of human being, wherein a lot of our work is actually working on not only the cultivation of land but also the cultivation of crops, and but more importantly about cultivation of the people, the cultivation of their mindsets on really gearing towards sustainable agriculture and more inclusive agriculture. So our company is focusing on innovative, inclusive, and for-purpose agribusinesses. We work around in the Philippines right now, around 23,000 farmers around the country. However, we focus on agri-based development and also fair trade for our farmers. Um, this is a very unique model that actually we're working. If you see the map of the Philippines in my presentation right now, we have 7,107 islands. It's such a beauty in itself if you want to enjoy our white beaches and go island hopping or go traveling within the island, but it's such a pain in terms of logistics and supply chain. I want to focus on that logistics and supply chain because I think this is the most relevant on the conversation that we're talking right now. Um, the more islands you have, the more intervention of cold chains you have because most of the productions are not present in mega cities. More importantly, here in Metro Manila, or sometimes, of course, if it's like in Luzon, but it's really far in Metro Manila. And another problem also is most of our food are actually produced in Visayas and Mindanao. So shipping that alone to the mega cities like Metro Manila, Cebu, is such an intense work. And we're talking about perishability. In our company, I love actually the idea of Toby's a while ago in the opening remarks because it's really about how do we build interventions that are very eco-friendly with, of course, economical impact to the stakeholders or to the end users, but at the end of the day, also have good economics. In our business, we believe on one island economy where we focus on developing the business models in terms of agriculture in every island we enter. So every island we enter, for example, right now, we have big intervention in the island of Marinduque. It's basically the heart of the Philippines and the island of Siargao in Mindanao. We work on this island to be the model of a one island economy because these islands are almost 90% agricultural, both farming and fishing. And right now we have 7 more islands in the pipeline: Palawan, Bohol, Cebu, Negros Occidental, where I come from, in Bacolod, and Iloilo and also Mindoro. Those islands are actually massive agricultural islands. We focus our intervention on zero waste, so all our practices are really eco-friendly. Zero hunger. This is not about the hunger of the stomach. This is really about the hunger of human being to belong, and the hunger of our farmers and the fisher folks. That in every technology that we develop, in every intervention that we develop, we design them accordingly based on their needs. It's not like we push it to them, even if it's not applicable on their side. And our business revolves around zero insufficiency. So every island we enter, we work closely with the governor, the Congress representative, and mayors, basically with the government, to really design the market study of the island. So I want to give you a background of our farmers, because I think a lot of us are talking about, who will be the end users of our products, right? Of course, aside from the big businesses are using cold storage, I think it's now time to really go down deep on how to bring our intervention on the farm level or on the farmer level. Experiencing during this pandemic, most of the producers are actually stuck on the farmer level. So the farmer in the Philippines were poor, aging, and low educational attainment. If you see here, the average age of farmers in the Philippines is 57 years old, and give them 10 years from now, they're not, anymore willing or welcome to adopt new technologies, and we need to train a lot of young people. I actually call our farmers our endangered species, because we need to provide that intervention. If you want to go into more scientific, more technology driven, and more eco-friendly intervention, we need to involve younger generation to adopt this one. Um, I'm showing this when the farmer is poor, so is the whole country. I guess this is something that why our country, the Philippines, is poor, because in the first place we forgot to really consider the welfare of our farmers. I know this event is hosted in Japan, and I was a consultant in Hokkaido for 3 years with the governor of Hokkaido. And I was so fascinated on how those interventions of the government are really uplifting the lives of the farmers, of the Japanese farmers. And sometimes I feel like hopefully it's happening in the Philippines, and events like this hopefully can bring this kind of intervention and inspire our government to do so. Another layer of problem that we're actually discussing, or the situation that we're discussing, the average land holding of farmers in the Philippines by the Department of Agrarian Reform is 1.29 hectares. There's no economies of scale. Compare it to the New Zealand farmers, or Australian farmers, they have so much land for one farmer. So when we talk about economies of scale and we're talking about cold storage, I think we really need to talk about intervention and how to make this land holding consolidated, to make this land holding rich in economies of scale, that our intervention can benefit a community of farmer. Recently, there has been a long discussion in the Department of Agriculture on how to consolidate the farmers as a main framework for the current secretary, so that any intervention of the government, it can benefit not only one farmer, but an association or a cooperative of 60 to 90 farmers. However, though, a lot of people are always telling me that there's always a failure in cooperatives in the Philippines. However, the failure always focus on the governance also. Every time you put cooperative and association, there must be good governance in the farmers. In my company, AGREA, we focus on consolidating the farmers, but we also help them to stabilize their governance in the organization by setting, the president, their board, and also, the marketing and the market person that we can talk to and help in providing our intervention. Um, During this pandemic, we reached 75% of post-harvest loss. This is sad. That's why, I really challenge everyone who are developing interventions on cold chain storage, that I think we need to step back a little bit and review this. If we provide intervention at the farmer level a few years ago or long year ago, I think this should be managed. But right now, a lot of our farmers during this pandemic, I've been um, out and about visiting farming communities because we help them bring their produce in the market. It's so sad to see that they just allow their produce rotting on their fields because they have no storage to put in. They need to be coming in Manila to actually provide this intervention or access to this kind of storage. And most of them, they don't have money. They don't even have trucks to bring this to the storage. So it was a loss of 75%. And in this scenario, the farmers are always shouldering the loss. It's not the traders or us, the consumers. It's always our farmers. And this is like around 3 to 4 months of job, planting these tomatoes and other vegetables and the like. Another one I think that we need to think is this. This is very recent. In the last 2 weeks, we had three typhoons. We had Quinta, Raleigh, and Ulysses, the largest one, last Thursday. And it really devastated our agriculture sector. And this is something that is very important to consider in terms of developing, intervention on our cold storage on the farmer level, because this is no joke. If Philippines is hit by 20 to 21 typhoons in a year, it's so hard to provide intervention by building massive cold storage in these places, because it might be every year you need to fix your roof or you need to fix the side wall of your cold storage, but you need to do something that is durable enough and typhoon proof, knowing the situation of the Philippine typhoon in the Philippines. And sad to say, every year it seems that it's increasing in terms of signal, and flooding is also one thing that is so difficult to handle. Another one, since we work with more than 23,000 farmers all over the country, and I've been to most of those farms, rural electrification is still a problem. I could see people still using kerosene lamp or candle, so that they can eat, or they need to eat at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when the sun is still not sunsetting, just to have a good meal. But this is the reality in the ground. So I want us to be aware on whatever intervention we can do to be considerate about the situation. We cannot always like fit one science to an area that is so difficult to reach because it will not work. And most of the time, that's the reason why farmers are hesitant to adopt, or even farmer cooperatives are hesitant to adopt. And even the government and investments in cold storage are not present because the absence of electricity. And electricity in the Philippines is not cheap. It's one of the most expensive utilities that we pay, I think, every month. Despite that, I'm very eco-friendly in our home. So what we do in our company, I show you a very simple, we don't have cold storage yet, but I'm just showing you a very simple intervention we've been doing in our farms. This is one of our farms in Marinduque that they don't have water for 30 days. And we experience El Nino or drought for 13 months, more than 1 year of drought. And these farmers were crying because 120 hectares of crops are all dying. So what we did, my company put this up in 30 days. So no water for 30 years. We made to bring them water in 30 days by using very simple intervention. For example, the solar water pump. There's a river that's almost drying up, and we need to dig that river to actually get this water. And until now, this solar water pump is working, and these farmers are doubling and doubling their income every year. So if we can provide this pocket size intervention on a farmer level, I think this is something that, in a more cumulative way, we can definitely bring impact to their lives. So thank you so much. If you want to contact me, here are my contact details. And thank you for listening. I'm happy to entertain questions if there are questions.
Cherrie, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, it's really great to hear your perspective. One of the most interesting things I heard you say is that it's not only the equipment that's necessary, but the equipment needs to be robust. I mean, it needs to withstand weather and extreme weather that's happening more and more these days. I'd like to ask, how do you see cooling equipment in general, cold storage, on-farm cold storage? We have a lot of people from the industry, not only in the Philippines but also overseas. What kind of equipment is needed, or how do you envision these refrigeration facilities or these cold storage facilities to really have a big impact for the farming community in the Philippines?
Thank you, Devin, for that very wonderful question. It's actually my dream if you can create like package size intervention. If you go around the Philippines and if you meet some communities of farmers, especially those who are having cooperatives or associations that are supplying, traders or institutional market, most of them they have like a little post-harvest facility or where they wash, a little room which is also their mini office. So if we can help like set up just, a small room with a very good refrigeration that is eco-friendly, maybe for those farms without electricity, or if electricity is intermittent, we can use, solar. We have so much sun in the Philippines to harvest. But of course, battery is another thing that we need to discuss. And another one is I'm always fascinated on how this like reefer vans that are not used. I saw it all the time in ports in the Philippines. That if we can make that,
Reefer vans, is that what you said? The refrigerated trucks?
yeah, the refrigerated truck, but just the van at the back of the truck. When you remove it, that container, you know, um, I
Oh, yeah.
I saw that some of the places I went to, in construction sites, for example, they convert this container vans into offices. And what if there are a lot of that in the port being stuck? And if we can upcycle them and bring them to the farms, and instead of building something like a house or a building that costs so much for farmers, and if it's not sturdy enough during typhoon, I think there's this container vans, if we can utilize this and convert them into like a mini storage temporarily on these farming communities. These simple interventions are not band-aid solutions. Their simple interventions are basically can give so much savings on the post-harvest losses of the farmers. Yeah.
Yeah, those container vans. I know what you're talking about now. It's those actual like those trailers. Basically, is sort of the word that comes to my mind. These
Yeah.
refrigerated trailers. They're used in transport. They go on boats, or they can be pulled by trucks. But what you're saying is these types of things that are already standardized and can already be moved easily can be used to help to be brought closer to the farms, basically.
Yes, if we can do like that, because I observe that in low cost housing in the Philippines, that most of the time they use this as their on site office. They just put air condition. It became their on site office for their engineers and construction workers, for example. If we can copy that on the farmer level or in the fish ports, for example, this is something that very simple but very doable to do, you know?
Yeah. Actually, that's something that I remember seeing in our research that we were doing earlier this year. I think there were some refrigerated trailers that were deployed. I think in Cebu for some of the fishermen or some of these other local areas, but maybe that can be used or done in a wider scale. I have another question, real quick, and we are seeing some questions coming in from the audience. We still have a bit of time, so if you don't mind, I'd like to ask. Um, Specifically, Toby Peters in his presentation earlier today was talking about clean cooling. And the concept of clean cooling is a theme, an idea that we are becoming very familiar with here and also globally, that this cooling equipment has such a huge impact on reducing food waste, increasing farmers' incomes. We also have to keep in mind that this also could potentially have a big impact on the environment. So it's sort of like a really holistic, you know, thing you have to look at from a wide perspective. Do you see like the idea of clean cooling becoming really being really helpful for the Philippines, not only for the farmers, but increasing income, reducing food waste, and even having a lower impact on the environment? Is there really big potential for that in the country?
Of course, there's big potential in that clean cooling. Why is that so? Because I was mentioning a while ago, right? If we are dependent on electricity in the Philippines, it's the most expensive commodity we have, in terms of utilities. And at the same time, I think our country is in dire need for more sustainable ways on different kinds of technology, like for example, that clean cooling, because it's climate change is real, and we really feel it on a daily basis in the Philippines. It may be summer or rainy season and now typhoon season. So this kind of intervention is something that's very useful, and hopefully our government can actually work that out, on how to provide that kind of intervention to our farmer level and also to the fisher folk. And even in Metro Manila, I remember during this pandemic, we've been shipping tons and tons of produce from different parts of the Philippines. And I was approached by big cold storage facility. I said no to a lot of them because they're so expensive. And at the same time, aside from being expensive, um, it's not that eco-friendly, and I'm a very you know I'm always very conscious on the eco-friendliness of things. So I always ask about what's my carbon footprint impact as a company. But I think my company is like a little bit more aware on that one. But educating the farmers and the stakeholders, the users, the end users of this cooling type of cold storage is something that's very useful in the Philippine setting. Another one is why it's useful. A lot of people who are now in cold storage are mostly young people. These are young entrepreneurs who are inheriting the businesses of their fathers or mothers or the family business that are into cold storage. So like last week, I was just meeting like this young man, and he's always like telling, we want to be the most sustainable cold storage facility in the Philippines. We want to bring like interventions that are eco-friendly because we want to be climate aware. What's the effect of this? So for sure, when we can bring that kind of technology in the Philippines, I think a lot of people will jump off and try it out. Of course, the price. We need to think about the price. If how much is that, right?
And I think it really is a good point, because the whole point of this this conference is to tackle it from all angles. The cost of the equipment, the impact on the environment, the potential for it to have a positive impact on the rural communities, on really a holistic view. And we're going to be hearing more about how these issues can be solved from speakers in the rest of today and tomorrow as well. So it's great to have your view on this to contribute to the discussion. I'll let you go, and thanks a lot, Cherrie, for sticking with us. And oh yeah, sorry. We have one question I'd like to address.
Okay.
Okay. Here we go. So the question is, as mentioned, governance of cooperatives is a problem, as you mentioned. However, the question is, I believe funding this smaller portable cold storage is the main issue. Private companies can fund, but farmers may not be able to afford, as in our experience in Nueva Ecija, I believe that's how it's pronounced, for onions. The cost of less than 1 million pesos is still not affordable. So really, this issue of cost is something. Does that sound like a big problem? I mean, is that one of the main issues for deploying this equipment? Initial costs.
That's why I was emphasizing about the cost, right? The price of the equipment, because sometimes even if it's useful for them, even if they see that okay, this is the economics of things. You can have this much of savings, and then if you convert this much of savings into money, this is your income automatically. But sometimes when they see the price of the technology, it's the first turn off. They don't care what's right. But I think on the cooperative, there are so many programs now the government has. I'm a Philippine ambassador for food security. We've been discussing this with the secretary. So as long as the farmers are having the cooperative title, they're registered by the government as a legal entity. Somehow there are programs that the government can co-sponsor, interventions and technology like this. I remember 3 months ago, our secretary just announced a 70 million pesos worth of cold storage to be installed in the Philippines to help fruit farmers, for example, in Mindanao to do that, and also in Benguet, where the high value vegetables are. So, but I think, of course, there are a lot of issues. Even if there's money, we need to be careful what kind of technology we can bring in. And if the farmers can later on, for example, if the government can advance, if it's not a grant, if it's a loan of the government to the co-op has a capacity to pay it along the way. Yeah, so because cooperatives are run by farmers, right? And mostly buying one tractor is a headache for their discussion. I was a consultant of agrarian reform before, and my job was forming cooperative. And this is
Mhm.
one factor. Just a decision to buy a hand tractor, which is like less than $1,000. It's such a long discussion for them because they feel it's so big in their head, and when you
Yeah.
talk about million, their jaws will drop on the floor because I couldn't even count what is 1 million, and now I'm buying a facility that is 1 million. So it's also like their mindset towards and perception towards the price. Yeah.
I mean, it's important to just remember. I think for all of us as an industry, for all of us as people, as a community, that these costs up front need to be taken care of and supported, because we are offsetting the costs that are coming to us in the future, in the form of environmental impact and impact on
and,
rural communities and people.
and if I can add, Devin, actually, like we have intervention in Siargao, right? Siargao Island, now the government is asking us to it's in Mindanao. It's a
Okay.
$1 billion tourism industry, and the demand for high value vegetables and meat products is extremely out of the chart. Because they have around 300,000 to 500,000 tourists coming
Yeah.
pre-COVID. But
Yeah.
the government together with USAID provided a cold storage facility. It was quite big facility by the port, and it's been not working for 3 years. So this is also another problem.
Not
If
working.
not working for 3 years because
Oh wow.
another one is there's no proper turnover of the project. There's no proper training of the people using the project. There's no
Yeah.
proper ownership set. You know, is it owned by the donor organization, or is it owned by the technology provider? Is it owned by the government, or is it owned by the farmers? Sometimes, if there are projects that are funded by the government or international organizations, the ownership of the project should be defined clearly, because these are
Yeah.
most of the time the problems in the Philippines. It may be on irrigation, in cold storage, the real ownership. Who will take ownership in managing this? Who will take ownership if this will not work? Who will take ownership when the technology will not work, and who will maintain it? So that entire clarity of ownership is something that most of the technology are being stuck, and that's why they're not useful along the way.
Yeah, for somebody to actually see it through and have the responsibility to see something's not only implemented at one time but is followed through with, is what you're saying, it
Yeah.
sounds like. Okay, great. Cherrie, it's I'll let you go now, and thanks a lot for taking the time with us today. It's very enlightening, both the presentations from you and from Ms. Raquel from the Board of Investments. We know that there's a lot of potential for more communication. That's what we need, is communication between all important stakeholders in the industry. So I'll let you go. Thanks a lot, and we'll be in touch. And if anybody would like to reach out to you, we have your information here on the slides, which we'll make available afterwards. Thank you very much, and have a good day.
Yeah, thank you very much, Devin. Bye. Have a great day also.